Welcome to the Artist Academy podcast, a place where we focus on the business side of art to help you attract more customers, increase profits, to ultimately live a life of creativity and financial freedom. I'm your host, Andrea Earhart, and this week's episode is an interview with muralist and adventurer Emily Beaudoin. I so appreciate how real Emily is with her answers to all of these technical painting and business questions that I ask her throughout this chat. She's just like you and me. She is figuring it out as she goes, under deadline, of course. Emily and I chat about her experience painting for Lululemon, Black Diamond, and several other name brands. She splits her time between muraling in the Canadian summer and illustrating things like T-shirts or hat designs in the colder months. Emily's a fantastic example of what it looks like to lean into what interests you and have that seep into the paintings you create. So listen to hear how she's navigating a business surrounded by the subjects that inspire her to live an adventurous life. And let me know what you think about this episode with Emily Beaudoin. Hello, Emily. I'm so excited to talk to you today amidst the technical problems we've been having. I think this is just so standard, like artist. I feel like I always forget something when I show up to a mural job or something. I feel like things just kind of go wrong. So thanks for hanging with me for this.
Yeah, no worries. There's always something.
Yeah.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about your mountainscapes and just everything that you do. But can you back it up and tell us how you got into the arts?
Yeah, so I was always a really artsy kid. My aunt is an absolutely incredible painter. She's a graphic designer and commercial artist, but also just an amazing painter. And so I always had her, inviting me over to her studio to experiment and giving me art supplies for birthdays and Christmas, which was great. And my parents were very supportive as well. There's always lots of supplies kicking around. And I kind of started getting more into it in high school. I was taking every art class I could and also every acting class. I was really into theater at the time. And I remember, okay, it's time to go to university and figure out what you want to do with the rest of your life. And I was really torn between art school and theater school. And I figured, well, I'm an extrovert, so I guess I'll go to theater school, which was great. I was in acting school for 2 years, but ultimately, it just wasn't really, I'm not a super competitive person. And it's a very competitive field. And I felt like I kind of killed the joy of acting a little bit. So I switched into my other passion, which has always been the outdoors and the mountains. I've always been super, super inspired by and drawn to the mountains. So I started a outdoor leadership, kind of an education program, which was great. But I was just feeling really sad and there was just like something missing and I couldn't figure it out what it was for a few months and eventually realized that I hadn't been doing anything creative. When I'd been acting, I'd been writing plays and directing and making costumes, all this stuff. But once I stopped that, I just had this like void. So I started painting and drawing again just for fun. And that was really a big turning point for me. Just like, okay, I need to have the outdoors and the mountains, and I also need to have creativity in my world. So I finished that program and all the while was painting and drawing just for fun on the side. Never dreamed that I would make a cent from it. But people kind of were liking it. I got this app called Instagram and I started posting stuff on it. And yeah, that was a huge kind of realization for me that like I need to incorporate this into my life in a fairly big way. And I guess the first sort of breakthrough I had where I felt like, oh my gosh, this could be a real job was I'm a very avid skier and there's this amazing handmade ski and snowboard company in Whistler called Prior. And every year they host a ski and snowboard top sheet art competition. So I decided to enter that with didn't know how to use Photoshop, had never heard of Adobe, didn't know how to scan art or digitize it at all, and spent a whole semester designing this top sheet, teaching myself Photoshop, like going into the visual arts lab and pestering all the TEs, asking them questions. They're like, do you even go here? Like, who are you? So I entered that competition and I ended up winning People's Choice Award for the 2017 competition, which was just a really big shocker for me, and just a realization that this could be a real thing. And then from there, I just kept going, and people were asking for commissions, and I started to put together a website and apply to different opportunities, and it kind of just started rolling from there. And I moved back to the mountains, which was great. I went to school on Vancouver Island in Canada. So to be back in the mountains, just like the inspiration just went wild. All I wanted to do was be out there painting and drawing. And then I guess, to talk about murals, my first mural opportunity was with Lululemon in Banff, which was amazing. I didn't know how to do murals at all. And they knew me. I'd done a little bit of chalkboard and window art for them. And one day the manager called me and was like, I am so sorry. I have to apologize. I did something without asking your permission. And I said that you could do a mural in our store when we do the reno. And I was like, I don't know how to do murals. But they're like, yeah, you'll figure it out. So that was kind of my first mural. So those two, Prior and Lululemon, really kind of gave me the confidence and a little bit of street cred to start moving forward with a bit more of like a formal, actual job as an artist.
Lululemon, no big deal. I'm only sitting here in Lululemon leggings right now. Seriously, I'd like to show you my butt if I could go up.
Yeah, it was such a gift that they did that and trusted me. That was so cool.
Very cool. So I noticed you have some of your designs on like socks and things.
Mm-hmm.
How did that come about?
Sort of my MO when I started was I was so sick and tired of having to buy like pink women's outdoor gear that had like a little butterfly on the hip. Like, I want not pink. I want it to be cool colors. I want sweet designs. So that has always been a big kind of motivator for me, because I'm just not a big pink person. And I think pink is great, but I think that there should be other options. So I've worked with quite a few outdoor companies to just do some more different designs. And the socks are actually me. So there's a company in Victoria called Outway, and they make custom, they're like kind of cycling, hiking socks. And I reached out to them a number of years ago and I was like, I want to sell these socks. Could you customize them for me? And I've been working with them ever since and just selling the socks on my website. And it's been super fun because I used to work part-time for a cycling and hiking guiding company. So there was a lot of people interested in that realm for the socks.
You cool, like hiker outdoor, like snowboarding girls. Do you ski and snowboard, you said?
Ski, yeah.
Okay, ski, yeah.
Terrible snowboarder.
My skiing abilities are laughable. We go once a year, every other year maybe, and so that's the only practice that I have. My husband's just like
getting out there.
Stuff around. Oh yeah, he's like, I want you so bad to be like a ski bunny. I'm like, so I mean, hats off to you.
It's easy for me. I live right in the mountains. I'm in this little mountain town surrounded by snowy peaks, so the access for me is a lot easier than most people.
Yeah. So you're taking all of the things that you love to do and you're infusing it into your art. And I think that's so cool to see and so inspiring. And so what is your main form of income nowadays? Like if you were to break up, so you're doing a bunch of different things. If you were to break it up like in a pyramid tier.
Yes, that's a great question. Living in Canada, the mural season is quite short. It's kind of like June, July, August, maybe September if you're lucky. So I make most of my income from murals in the summer, and then that goes, unless there's an interior job, fairly dormant for the winter. And then I switch to, last winter, I committed the whole winter to painting. I'm a watercolor artist by trade. That's kind of where I started. So I painted a solo show that went up at a new gallery in Calgary. And that was kind of like all of last winter was just committed to painting these 10 fairly big 18 by 24 inch watercolor paintings of the local mountains. So that was kind of last winter. This winter, I'm focusing more. I've got some contracts with outdoor companies and digital art and design for some patterns, getting into that. I also do markets at Christmas and then commissions. So I would say murals are probably my biggest source of income right now, followed by contract work with outdoor companies. And then this show, it was called Daybreak. So my Daybreak show has generated a lot of income, just like prints and licensing those designs to companies. So that's been really cool as well.
Very cool. Okay, if you hear her, everybody, she only spends a few months a year doing murals, and they're still her top thing. So anytime I'm like, murals make money. So yes,
They are where the money is. It's amazing.
yeah. So let's get into. I'm really interested. I'm a muralist, obviously, and I make the majority of
Yeah.
my money doing murals. But I'm like you, and I just like to dabble in all the different things, and I'm interested in areas that I don't know that I could sit on my couch and doodle. And so
Mm,
I'm very interested in the like creating things on Procreate and then getting them printed, and also your digital designs for
mm,
companies and
yeah.
just in prints. Can you talk to me more about that? How do you get those jobs? What do you do exactly?
Yeah, I've been very lucky. It's mostly word of mouth. There's been the odd call for art that I've applied to. And then a lot of it is just like making, like, I'm like, I want to do socks. I reached out to Smartwool. They're like, who are you? No. So then I just kind of found my own supplier and have created a lot of opportunities. Like I wanted to design cycling jerseys, and the company that I used to guide for has this big staff ride every year where there's like 500 cyclists from all over the world riding bikes. It's going to be in Croatia this year. So I offered to design the Team Canada kind of like jersey. And then Team Netherlands heard about it and they reached out and asked if I could design. So I've been working with Jack Rue for them. They're an amazing cycling company that does custom jersey orders. So yeah, it's like sometimes it's contracts with actual outdoor companies. Sometimes it's just me, like, I just want to do this and I'm just going to figure out a way to do it. But in terms of the kind of the technical aspect of it, I was super resistant to digital art for a long time. My boyfriend at the time was like, you need to buy an iPad. Like, the world is going to leave you behind. You have to learn. And I'm so glad that he pushed me to do that because I still find wet media more exciting. But sitting on a couch or an airplane or a
Yeah.
bus stop with your iPad and designing is amazing. So yeah, I've kind of just been like chipping away at learning Procreate. I wish I could say I was a proactive person, but I'm more of a reactive person. And I was like, okay, I got this contract and I don't know how to use Procreate. So I'll just learn in a week of sleepless nights and panic, which is kind of generally how I roll. Unfortunately, I wish I wasn't like that. And then I guess 2 years ago, I took this amazing Adobe Illustrator course from Bonnie Christine. She's got a great podcast and does like kind of surface pattern design. So I learned how to use Procreate and then vectorize it and make them into printable designs with her course, which was a big turning point for me. I just feel a lot more confident doing projects like that because I actually can.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds very intimidating. Just being able to vectorize it, even that's a big
Yeah,
one.
but honestly, it's a beautiful, huge course. There's all these lessons. She sends you this big textbook and yeah, it's like step by step and I still have it. So I forget, like, I don't use Illustrator a lot. So I'll just go back and replay the odd lesson and like, oh yeah, that's how you outline font in Illustrator. So that was
Okay.
huge.
How long does it take? Like, so if I was wanting to print out something, like I'm interested in doing like wallpaper or something, and
Mhm.
I'm not sure what I need to vectorize it. I don't know if you know, but how long?
Yes. For the
How long?
most part, they want it to be vectorized. It depends. Like, I find a lot of companies, it's just a blanket statement. We need it to be vectorized because not a lot of people know how to properly scan or send a high quality enough raster image. So sometimes I'll just call them and be like, hey, like, I know what I'm doing. If I send you a 600 DPI file, that's a Photoshop file, is that okay? And they're like, oh, yeah, that's fine. We just say vector because most people will send us like a pixelated, blurry image. So because my work is very intricate and generally watercolor based, I prefer not to vectorize things. Just because it's really hard to vectorize watercolor. It'll be like wallpaper companies are better because you can generally use unlimited colors. But if you're designing fabric, sometimes they'll have like a minimum of 12 colors. And I'm like, oh, I have like 12 shades of light yellow. There's hundreds of colors. So I generally will do more of like an illustrative feel for projects where I'll use one color as the line art and then maybe color in a few things afterwards. It is possible to vectorize watercolor. It just is very time consuming.
Okay, what is vectorizing exactly? Do you know, like, what do you
I kind of know.
how long
So
does it take?
it depends what you're doing. If you're vectorizing an illustration, like I mainly am just bringing in intricate line work, it's fast. Once you figure out the kind of pre-settings, you can save your settings. So I'll have like Team Canada jersey illustration. So every time I bring it in, it's going to be relatively the same look of the vector. And a vector, to the best of my knowledge, is a mathematical equation that puts a line on an ever expanding curve. So if you were to have a PDF or a TIFF or a JPEG file that's a raster and blow it, and it's this big in real life, and then you scan it and you blow it up and you put it on a bus, it's going to be super pixelated because rasters are made up of the little squares that are pixels versus vectors are these like smooth math lines. So you could essentially blow up your illustration and cover the earth with it, and it would never get pixelated. How they did this, I have no idea. But it is an amazing way to blow up your art or send it to printing companies and just guarantee that it's not going to be blurry or pixelated.
Very cool. Okay, I need this. I need to learn how to do this. I guess.
Look into Bonnie Christine's immersion course. It is
Okay.
the best course I've ever taken.
Okay. How much is it?
It was a couple $1,000s.
Oh
it
my
was
gosh. Whoa.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, it was a hefty investment, but I have made my money back. I'm not sponsored by her. She doesn't even know who I am.
Okay.
I have made my money back like time and time over with just the knowledge of that course.
Okay.
And it took me so long to commit, but I had COVID and I was like alone in New Zealand and with nothing to do. Like, I'm just going to do this course, and it's been awesome.
Very cool. Oh, I'm glad to see that, there's so many courses out there, and I'm glad to see that you benefited from it and you're using
I'm
it.
always very skeptical of online courses.
Yeah.
So this one was fabulous.
Cool. What were you doing in New Zealand?
I was traveling. I was plein air painting for 3 months. My friend and I went over and we bought a van and just hiked, and I painted a ton. And then I got COVID on a hut on Mount Cook and just like died for 2 weeks. And this course just was the only thing that I could do.
What a story. Oh, wait, like I was just, we had a van and like plein air and all the typical traveling artist,
That's my jam. Plein air painting is my first love. I really, really love plein air painting.
Really? So do you have a setup that you use? An easel or?
Yeah, because I'm a watercolor, that's why I'm a watercolorist, is they're so lightweight. You don't need to carry an easel. They're not toxic. They're not heavy. They're not messy. So I almost always have a couple palettes and brushes in the bottom of my backpack. And my kind of absolute favorite thing to do, whether it's for work or just a day off, is to just hike or ski or bike into the mountains and paint the view and get really cold and dehydrated and uncomfortable while painting. There's something really, really special about it.
Cool. I love it. Okay. So, and nowadays, most of your customers come to you, right?
Yeah, I would say so. I could probably be better at reaching out and cold calling and applying for things. But I seem to be like, my schedule's full. So I'm just rolling with that. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. How are you pricing these things? Because you have so many different things. So with Murals, is it by square foot? With the digital stuff, is it how to price?
I'm sure everyone on here can relate. It's so hard. It's my least favorite part of this job. And I feel I need to just get a system. I have, for my original watercolor paintings, I price per linear inch. So I sort of have this like big list of sizes and prices that I'll send to clients, which is great. I'm really glad I put in the work for that. And I don't know off the top of my head what I'm pricing per linear inch at the moment, but Murals, it really depends on the client. Like I just finished a big mural down in Seattle for Black Diamond and Evo. And they just sent me the RPF with like, this is how much we're going to pay you. And they paid me $15,000, which for me was like the most I've ever been paid for a project. I was so over the moon. Looking back, I think if I was to do the same thing, I'd probably charge more just because it took me a month. It was like 30 solid days of 12 hours a day on the boom lift.
Wow.
It was so intricate. Definitely the most intricate and detailed mural that I've ever painted, which I love. It was great. They also provided the boom lift and accommodation for me. So that was huge. Yeah. And then like, I don't know, it's kind of client to client, like you can't charge the little mom and pop shop in Banff that has like a smoothie shop the same as you can Black Diamond in Seattle. So my sort of rule, I don't really do anything less than $3,000 for a wall now, just because like the time it takes to set up and work with the client and do the design, that's sort of my base price. And then it sort of goes up from there. I think in the past I've charged $13 a square foot, but obviously that changes if the wall is bigger or smaller. I definitely still feel like I'm very learning the pricing game.
Very cool. Okay. And then how do you charge for your, like the digital stuff?
Yeah, I generally charge, if it's like a t-shirt design, around $1,000 is generally seems to be the going rate. I've been reaching out to several other artists and that kind of is like ish where it is. Ski top sheets are usually around $1,000, which is crazy because there's so much more work than a t-shirt design. I'm going to try to push that up a little bit this year, but yeah, I would say the minimum is 600 for like a hat design or a t-shirt design, just because, they're going to be selling it and I should be charging more. Like all of us should be charging more than that for designs that people are going to sell and make money off of.
So true. Okay. So then, so say somebody comes to you and they want a hat design, and then in the middle of it, they're like, oh, by the way, we're going to put it on t-shirts too. Does that change anything?
Yeah, I'm pretty clear in the contract negotiations. Like, you need to tell me what it's going to be on. And if that changes, then we need to negotiate kind of a new contract.
Okay.
And that people have been pretty good. I don't think anyone has tried to put it on something else. The other big thing, I'm like learning about art licensing. It seems to be an amazing passive source of income. And Bonnie Christine talks a lot about that. That's kind of her like thing. The kind of key to art licensing seems like you can license a design to a ski company. And then because it's not a competitive industry with diapers, you can license it to a diaper company and then an outdoor water bottle company. Like, it seems like you can be reusing these designs and charging either a flat upfront fee or royalties on the same design at the same time, which I have yet to do, but sounds really cool.
Okay. Yeah. So say like somebody wanted a t-shirt design, that would be $1,000. And then they came back and saying that it was going to be also on hats too. Would you say that's an extra 300 and you have that licensing thing, or what, or would it be double, or?
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay. Yeah. We'll just figure it out.
I think that to me, royalties sound great because it's like, oh yeah, sure. If you want to put these on hats, you give me 6% of all of the hat sales. And then however many you want to sell, that's great because I benefit. Or if you're like, these hats kind of suck and they're probably not going to sell many, then I would probably charge a flat rate. And then I always try to go for a limited 2-year contract. So they don't have exclusive forever and ever rights. And then at the end of 2 years, you would reach out to them and say, hey, like, hope the design's been selling well. Was curious if you would like to renew the contract and renegotiate. Or if you're done using the design, then in writing, you don't have the right to print it anymore, and I will take it back and use it for something else.
Oh, wow. Oh,
Yeah.
I wasn't aware of anything like that. That's so interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Do you know Maggie Entre-Rios? Little
No, I don't know
Patterns
any of
is
these
her
people.
Instagram. Oh my gosh, you need to look up her. And
Okay.
she is an absolutely unbelievable botanical illustrator who also hates vectorizing and really pushes to have raster. And she is just like such a boss about negotiating her contracts. And yeah, she's making who knows how much, but you should definitely look into her. She's awesome.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely will. Okay. Awesome. Okay. Anything that you would want to add? Any kind of art and business advice, or just art advice in general? Any stories that you have that are anything crazy happened or lessons learned?
Oh my gosh. I just feel like as a muralist, like something always goes so wrong. Every contract has gotten to the point where I like build it into my time frame. I'm like, okay, like 2.5 days for insert disaster here.
Yeah.
I just this mural I just finished down in Seattle, someone broke into the parking lot and the shipping container and stole like $800 of paint from me, which was so brutal.
So
And
random.
yeah,
Feels
I
paint.
was using spray paint, and there were
Oh,
definitely graffiti artists that were just like watching. And it's like the one night that there was a bunch of muralists working at the same time, and I thought that this other girl had locked the shipping container, and I didn't check it, and they just like yoinked all of my spray paint. So that was brutal. I guess also just spray paint is a new thing for me. My first outdoor mural I mentored with this amazing muralist named Anquan, who's originally from France, but he's now in Montreal, with the YYC Bump Mural Festival in Calgary. And I was expecting to get me a coffee and mix the purple. And I arrived and he's like, oh no, like you get your own 60-foot boom lift. This whole side of the parkade is yours. Like we have 3 weeks, go. Which was incredible. I'd never driven a boom lift before. I'd never done a mural outside before. I'd only ever used like Molotow pens inside for the Lululemon mural. And he taught me how to use bucket paint with brushes and rollers and all these different techniques, which was amazing. So for several years, I continued to do that. And then I went down to Bellingham for the Noisy Waters Mural Festival a couple summers ago that Gretchen Leggett runs. It's amazing. And I was, I think, the only person using bucket paint. And everyone else was just like, spray it up a storm. We have 3 days to finish these walls. I was like sweating bullets every second of the day, painting on the wall. These guys are like having drinks in the beer garden. It's just so much faster to use spray paint. So I was like, okay, I need to learn. I need to set aside a week and just get some old plywood in my backyard and buy some spray cans and just waste some paint and learn. And then again, going back to the proactive versus reactive learner, I didn't. I was busy all summer. I never committed the time. I had 2 contracts in Bellingham coming up and was fully planning to paint them with bucket paint. And I tore my rotator cuff of my shoulder and was like, I can't lift gallons of paint. Like there's no way. So I guess I'll do spray paint because I can have my one arm in like a sling and spray paint with the other hand. So I just learned how to use spray paint in June on these 2 walls. And it's been amazing. Like such a cool change. And the mural I just did in Seattle was all spray paint as well, which has been just, a huge shift in my style. Well, not style. You can create some really amazing watercolor-like techniques with spray paint that I didn't know about. So that's been huge. Sorry, I feel like I went on a massive tangent. We were talking about disasters. Now I'm talking about spray paint.
I'm in the same boat as you. I really want to get more into spray paint, but I just can't make myself go practice. I don't know. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I guess I could watch a YouTube video, but yeah, it is so much.
Just do it. Just like say yes to a wall and order several $100s of paint and force yourself to learn.
I feel like I'm also like that. Like, I'll just figure it out in the moment. And then, because if I don't have like a deadline, then I'm going to go to something else that does. So I
love a stressful deadline.
I love that. Yeah, it gives you the real push instead of, it just goes away from the whole idea of having like an artist in a studio, like using your creativity. It's like, no, like let's just do this the most frantic way possible. Let's get it done. Sweat bullets the whole time. Yeah.
Totally.
What kind of spray paint do you like?
So I've tried a few different brands. I started with Loop. They are a brand that's sold in Calgary. They're like very popular in Western Canada. So I used them for my first 2 walls that I did in June. And they were great. And then I was talking to Gretchen, hosted this like amazing artist dinner party. And we just talked about spray paint and like spray caps and the nerdiest stuff you can imagine all night. It was wonderful. And one of the other, Dom Laporte, is an incredible spray paint artist. And he was like, Loop kind of gets sticky. I don't love it. And I did find that it would get a little like gummy coming out of the can. So I've switched to Montana 94 and it's been great.
Okay. Good to know.
Yeah.
Very cool. I love that you went to that muralist thing with Gretchen. She's also been on the podcast before and she's just such a boss. Like,
She's such a boss. And I really have her to thank, like going down to Noisy Waters, meeting all of these amazing muralists. I came as I was back in Bellingham to paint the wall that I won from that festival. And then while I was down there, she's like, oh, I have this other wall that you should do. And then while I was down there in June, she was art directing the Black Diamond and Evo development and was like, they need a mountain artist. Can I pitch you?
cool.
So she's just been absolutely, amazing. I really, really think she's such a rad chick. And it's so cool that she is the muralist of Bellingham. All the walls down there are painted by her. She could keep that for herself, but she decided to start this mural fest and essentially bring in competition to compete with her and her work, and has been giving away contracts to people like me and just spreading the love, which I just think is absolutely amazing.
Very cool. And you made that connection because you went and met her and did the things, and then good things come from it. I love that. Awesome. I guess any last minute advice before we end this of just things, maybe something that you would tell your younger self when you were first getting started, of some advice of like the artists that are listening that want to do what you do, but they're like in the very starting stages.
Yeah, I think just like it is possible. I, for so long, was just drawing and painting just for myself, which was wonderful. And then to kind of realize like, whoa, you can make a living off of this, and to say yes to really scary, uncomfortable things. I think if I had always waited to be prepared and known exactly how to do murals and use Procreate and use spray paint and sign crazy, scary contracts, I would never have moved, Like, I think pushing yourself to discomfort is a huge part of this job. Being okay with rejection is a massive part of this job. I wake up to like at least 1 or 2 rejection emails every day of stuff I've applied for, shows, mural fests, all these things that I've been rejected from. And I kind of have started thinking of it like, if I'm not getting rejected, then I'm not trying hard enough. Like, you need to put yourself out there. And I've kind of started to like, it's like a prideful stack of rejection letters and emails, because that means you're pushing it and putting yourself out there in a vulnerable way. My favorite rejection emails that I've ever got, I want to frame it in like a gold frame. It's so funny. I applied for this RPF for a big mural down in Fernie. And it was one of those ones where you have to fully design the mural, which I really don't love. It's like getting all these muralists to do this work for free, and it's not a great industry practice. But it was only open to artists who were living in the Columbia River Basin, which I was at the time, and people that have mural experience. And I was like, I don't know anyone that lives around here that has this. So I'm just going to do it and maybe I'll get it. So I did this big design. I was so proud of it. They emailed me back and they're like, hey, thank you so much for your submission. We love all of your other work, but we kind of hate your submission, actually. Like, you just really missed the mark. I don't know how you came up with this. Like, it kind of sucks, but we really respect you. So we'd love to offer you the opportunity to paint this design on a dumpster in the alley behind the wall for $200. I was like, that is the most epically insulting rejection I have ever received. Like, who wrote that? But to just, you're like, part of the game, just laugh it off. I'm like,
you're so great, but we want to put your artwork on a dumpster. Thank you.
Like, I was like, that wouldn't even pay for my gas money to get to and from Fernie. Like, sorry, no.
That's so funny. I once had my old school, like my K through 12 school, I asked if I could come paint something, and they were like, yeah, you could paint stuff in the bathrooms if you want. And I was like, sure, whatever. So I painted it in 4 different bathrooms, and they gave me a certificate that was like, thank you so much for your artwork in the bathrooms. And I'm like, it was like next to the toilets. Like, I'm just like, okay, you're welcome. Yeah,
so
that's awesome.
good.
But garbage is great as well. It's just, we're just working our way up. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes like saying yes to those opportunities, if you've never had a mural and you can paint a dumpster, like do it, get it on your resume. Yeah.
My husband, we have a big dumpster at the end of our driveway, and he's like, please, I want you to paint a dumpster monster on it. And I'm like, no. So I would stop, and finally he's like, no, I really want this. I was like, okay. So he like, it's his pride and joy. He's like, every time we pass it, he looks at it, he's like, that's the best thing you've ever done. I was like, "That's just like, you're ridiculous. Like,
Thanks, honey.
dumpster monster. Yeah. So like, are you even an artist if you haven't painted on a dumpster or a toilet seat or something? I don't know.
You gotta get in there.
Right.
Yeah, it's such a fun job. I still like, we get to do this and we're getting
Yeah.
paid for it. It's so great.
I think about that.
And it's really hard and it's scary and it's not, I don't think I could put this much sweat and blood and tears and time and effort and vulnerability into anything else. Like, you have to have such a passion for it, and it makes it all worth it. Answering emails at 1:00 in the morning and frantically writing up project proposals and all that. Like, it's all just, allows us to paint, which is so cool.
Yeah, it is a lot of just feeling uncomfortable, like putting yourself out there. So it's great. As soon as you said you're an extrovert, I was like, oh gosh, that's amazing. Because I ask a lot of people to interview, and a lot of artists say no, or they just don't want to be on camera. Like, and I totally get it. Like, I was like that too. But it's like, it's great that you are an extrovert and that you put yourself out. And I think this is just a great example of when you do put yourself out there and put yourself in those uncomfortable situations and fly to go meet or drive to go meet and a muralist that you've never met. Like, good things come from it. Like, you could clean out a dumpster one day.
Hard. Like, I am an extrovert and I like public speaking and I like meeting people, and I find it physically painful, like, to put myself out there and try to introduce and like mix and network, and hopefully it'll pay off. And I was talking to my mom about this the other day to me, I find learning something new, like, actually painful. I get so just this feeling of like, I'm not enough. I don't know how to do this. I'm a loser. I just like feel so incompetent. And then to me, I'm like, I need to get rid of this discomfort. So I just learn and like chip away at it. And then eventually it's like when you're studying for a really scary exam in university and it feels awful. And then the more you study, you're like, okay, starting to feel more confident. And then you walk into the exam and you're like, I've done all that I can. I know the best to my abilities. Whatever happens is going to happen. I really like that ability to like tamp down those feelings of discomfort with learning and force myself into new situations, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it gives me a little bit of comfort knowing that you are uncomfortable, even though you are an extrovert. Like, it's hard for you too, because recently, not even in business, like, I just decided lately that I really wanted some more mom friends who had littles, like I did, like little bitties, like 1 and 2 year olds. So I went to this mom gathering, and before I was like, okay, here we go. Like, I know I barely know anybody, but I'm just going to go. And then afterwards, I'm like, oh my God, I said all these stupid things. But I'm like, but it went fine. Everything's fine. We went fine. Or it went well. But it's like I was like, okay, I need to put myself in an uncomfortable situation, but it's something good's going to come out of it. Yeah.
Yeah. And like, every time you do that, probably the next mom gathering that you go to will be a little bit easier,
Yeah.
like or I don't know, maybe sometimes I have to like reset, like, I'm back to square one.
No, it definitely is. And anytime, like, I kind of went through like a really weird thing a while ago, and I was just like, okay, I'm at a really low spot. Like, there is only up to go. Like, everything is gonna get me. Even last week, I was painting on a roof, and I was very uncomfortable, and it was crazy.
So cool.
And and I was like,
that.
cool, yeah. And it just, like, my nerves were so shot, but I was like, okay, I'm learning something new. I'm gonna get really cool footage out of this, and then afterwards, like, I was just like, and my body was sore and everything, and my mind was just kind of like frazzled because I had been up there for 3 days, and I was like, man, in a couple days I'm gonna feel so great, and I did, but because it's like you just did the hard thing.
Yeah,
but it is tough going through it.
How did you get that sketch onto the roof?
Oh, it was just a repaint. It wasn't even.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like, you can't project it. It's really hard to grid it. Like, how?
Yeah, I know that they did grid it the first time. That was the store was built like 20, 30 years ago, and he gridded it on there and just painted it so I could see what it was. And it was crazy how fast the paint faded. Really, the yellow that it was on there was barely anything.
Damn yellows.
I
hate yellows, and I use them all the time.
And reds. Like, how dare you?
Yeah. Like, why can't I just paint blue things? Like,
like black and white.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to come on here today and just talk about and just have a very real talk about business and life. And I loved that when I asked you questions, you're like, I don't know, but I do it like this. Like, you're not like positioning yourself as the expert, even though you kind of are. Like you're like, this is
Thank
what's
you.
working. Like it's still just very real.
It just feels like, I feel like all of us are kind of just faking it till we make it,
Like trying our best.
And there's definitely people that are pros and making it happen. But every day I'm like, okay, how do I do this new thing?
Yeah. Or like find the resource or ask the question or take the program or something, like the answer's out there.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. And I will.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, I'll continue to follow you on Instagram and I'll link all of your socials here. So I highly recommend everybody follow and just continue to watch where you go.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Andrea.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Artist Academy podcast. If you like this art and business talk in audio form, then I want to invite you to get my book. It's called Mural Money, How to Grow Your Art Business from Zero to Six Figures. So starting from the very bottom, like you don't even have a website yet. You have nothing. You're not sure where to go and you want to make money with a paintbrush. You want to have your creativity pay the bills. I have taken so much of the advice that I've gotten from artists from this podcast. I've been doing one episode for over 5 years now. So many interviews, so many good bits of advice. So I've taken the best of that advice and put it in my book, along with so many stories and lessons learned that I've had in my own mural career of just how I would go back and save a whole lot of time if I just knew these steps. It's a 15-hour audiobook. And so if you like this podcast, if you're listening to interview after interview, I know that you're going to like the book. So go to muralmoney.com. It's for anybody who wants to grow their art business with a paintbrush. Muralmoney.com. And I will see you next week for another episode of the Artist Academy podcast.